the loops, then if and else, sorry, bad, if and else statements. Uh, with this, I'll try to cover at least two questions to implement what you have learned, right? So, this is the agenda, what we will try to cover today, right? Now, we just move to, okay, so I should use paint only, right? So first thing, we are going to study Python so that we can understand how the things are working and how we are using Python and data analytics, right? So before we start with the Python, you just understand the what are the what are the first thing we will do is what are the variables, what are the different type of variables we have in Python, right? The first thing, because we are going to start with the basics, so the first thing we have is variables, right? Variables, variables, right? All right. So there are different types of variables that includes integers, right? The integers that includes 1, 2, 3, and so on, and -1, -2, and also we are all right, we are aware of what are integers, right? The other thing we have here is we can call string, right? Strings are there, strings are there, right? For example, like my name is Avnish, so that's a string. There is a combination of characters, right? We are not going into the detail because we are not understanding the core concepts of memory allocation, but in I'll try to understand, I'll try to explain how we are going to use these in our upcoming videos, right? We just understand how they are used, right, and move on. So the other thing is integers, strings. Then you have another thing that you are aware of, like boolean, right? You must have heard about boolean, that is 0 or 1. Then you have character, a string, right? Character includes A, B, and C, and so on, right? So in Python, I'll just go into the, right. This is my ID. So in Python, how do we declare a variable? So how do we declare a variable? Right. We just, what we do is we just name the, right. If we want to create, like suppose we want to create an integer x in Python, how do we do it? We just type the what is the type, right? What is the type in sorry, in Python we don't use the type because uh, here we just do this like x. We just name the variable as x, name of the variable, and we, with this equal operator, we assign the value. For example, the value of x is 5 here, right? We can assign another variable. The name of this variable is x, right? And we have assigned the value 5 to this variable, right? We can strictly name them, right? But that's not necessary. Now we would just try to print this x with the print statement. Don't worry, I'll explain this later on, but just understand print. Just what print do is, whatever you pass through this bracket, it would print in the console, right? We just execute, if we control plus s, save this and just execute it, right? uh, what happened? It's not working. Where's the console? I think it is not working. So no worries. We just shift to online compiler. I'll use another. So basically, this is an online compiler I'm going to use. No worries, because there's some issue with my Visual Studio Code. So here you can go is and select like Python 3, and the code is written here, right? So we can also write this is the code for print hello world. Just comment it out, and we don't want this. To comment, you can use three commas. So what commenting is basically, when the compiler runs, the commenting statement would not be executed, right? So what we were doing, we were creating an x variable with the value 5. Sorry, we have to remove, close these brackets also. Right, we were doing this x equals to 5, and we were printing it using the print statement. We were printing x, right? Sorry. So what we can do is, with this run button, if we click, the console prints 5, right? Now what I do is I just replace this 5 with a string, right? Avnish, right? So what happens? This x, have you noticed, like it was printing x? It was printing x earlier. It was printing 5 because it was 5. Now what happens? I have replaced it with a string. So what it should print? It should print Avnish, right? It is automatically converted to x, right? So this is basically how we can convert from one type to another. We can also see, like, if we convert x equals to 5, right, and try to print x, what would it print? So with this code, what we are doing is we are replacing. And initially, we declared x as a string with Avnish as its value. We printed that x. Now what we are doing? We are doing replacing this x with a value of 5 and printing that x. So I'll just run the code. Avnish and 5. Now the new value of x is 5, and it is an integer here. In the first line, in this first line, we were using it as an string. We printed a string. In the second line, in the third line, we printed an integer. We converted that string into an integer, and now we are printing that integer, right? So these is all are the types. We There are many types you can play around how we can convert these values. Now we have, so what we have done, we are basically named a variable, uh, and assigning values to that and declaring the output. What are the outputs are there, right? So there are different types of data types. The other thing you can do, my bad, I should write this also. So what you can with this with this type tag or type function, you can check what is the type of this x, and right, and to print it in the console, you must write the print statement, right? And what you do is just print what it is. This type statement is going to give me the type of x in this line, right? If I run, why should not, it is not printing the value of 5. What is the issue with this? Right, sorry. All right. So it is printing, like, just ignore the class for now. I'll explain it later. It is printing string, str. That means string. The type of x is string here. Can you, right? What would happen if I copy this statement? We are converting x into, and now it's much clearer. Like, in the first statement, x is in string. We printed that string. We printed the type, sorry, type of this string. In the third line, we printed that string, that is Avnish. What we did in the fifth line, we just declared it as an integer. So in Python, if anybody have knowledge about the programming languages in C++ and any Java and any other language, we have to define it first. Like what is the type of that integer we are going to define. If it is integer, we must write int. If it is a string, we must write string. If it is a boolean, then we must like bool or boolean, whatever the language supports. But in Python, you need not to worry. You just declare the variable. If at any point of the code you want to declare the variable with some other different type, we can do that also, right? So I hope that's clear to you. You can play with like boolean. You can play with numbers, right? Next thing we are going to see here is float. Float numbers you can play with. You can play with like there are other types of data types. You can also see dictionary is there, range is there, tuple is there, float is there, right? So other thing is, the next thing I'm going to cover is basically there's this term called casting. You can strictly convert like if you have an input, for example, uh, if I am taking in, sorry, my bad, z equals to, I'm declaring it as 1 2, right? And what it is, just should I remove this? Yeah, z equals to 12, right? The next, what are we going to do is we are going to print the type. We are going to print the type of z, right? Just see this. The type of this z is string, right? Because we are declaring it double quote. And the other thing here is, if I convert, right? If I convert this z into an integer, how we can do it? We can pass from like just declare another variable a. A is equals to int z, int type of a, right? If I run this, it's printing integer. Can you see this? The class is now converted to integer. What I did, I converted this z that was previously a string value, right, and converted this z into an integer and stored that integer into a, right, and converted printed the type. The type now coming is integer. We converted string. This is called typecasting. Basically, you converted your string type into a variable. Is there anything should do like StreamYard? Okay, there's nothing. Right. So there's first topic, those variables, how we declared them, how we converted them. It's just an introduction, and you can play with like float. Is there float? Just go through the float. Quickly go through the float. So just name like b is a variable, and I'm giving the value. It is 1.2334. Right. This is the number. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm using these columns. You can remove these columns. These are not necessary. These are required in C++ and Java. Coming from the Java background, so that happens, right? So B, that is 1.34, and if you try to print the type of B here, that was going to be float, right? The float this type is there, right? The B type is float type. Float basically is the decimal. If you want to play that, you can. See with this. The next thing that comes to our mind is what are the operators we have here, right? So there are different types of operators. As in mathematics, you have plus operator, that is addition operator, right? And one more thing I'd like to add here is you can comment them. You can comment these statements using hash. This is used for commenting. I've already explained what is commenting. You when your compiler goes like from the top, like if you want to write the paragraph, you can use these three starting and ending columns. Have you already used this multi-line comment, and this is single line comment. If you want to use single line comment, you can use it. What we were doing here, we were actually exploring the variables and their namings. Variables and namings. Then what next we need to do is we need to go through the we have already done the casting, we have done the boolean operations, we were copying the operations we have, right? So just consider we have already, so just now consider x, the value of x is suppose that x is 67 and the value of y is 89, and we need to store it in some variable. We can store our if we don't want to store, we can just write the print statement to print that value, and I'm going to use the additional operator. The plus sign is the additional operator that is used to add two values. I'm using this again and again, right? So if I run this, the answer is coming is 156, right? 67 plus 89, and the answer is printed here. Likewise, we can also use the minus operator. Would be the subtraction, right? The answer is minus 22. We can multiply them, right? How can we do that in Python? In Python, multiplication is done using star. If you put the stars, that would multiply those values, right? If you divide, right? This is a bit tricky, right? I'll explain it. X divided by y, the answer is coming to be 0.752, right? And if you don't want to, like, this is an integer, this is an integer, and this is a float, right? This answer is coming into a float. So you must, if you if in your code, if you are working with integers, you must be ensure that how if the answer is a float, how you are going to deal with that, right? So this is if you type, if you have done right the typecasting, just do it. You'll find that the number is coming out to be float, and you can also see that the number is in the decimal. So this the type data type is changed with this operation. If we divide it, because in the earlier operation, we if we were adding, if we were subtracting, if we were even multiplying, the data type, like the integer, would not becoming some other data type, but in this division, the conversion is there automatically. You have to handle it, right? The other thing that these are the basic operations, and the other thing is modulus. So what is modulus? Modulus is basically if you divide this x by y, what is the remainder that is coming out to be, right? What is the remainder? It's 67. Okay, because that's not divisible, so we should write y divided by x, so we would get the remainder, that is 22, right? These are the basic operations. We can write like operations we have already done, plus minus we have done the multiplication, the division, and the modulus, right? Another thing I'm going to do is print. Oh, there's another thing, exponential, like we must reduce them to like two or three. That's easy to understand, right? So now we just see this like x is there, x multiply by this is these are called exponential. Like you see the result and you will get to know. The answer is 9. You can say exponential. What is you are all aware of? It's just the power like three. The power 3 is the base and 2 is the power, right? So 3 square is 9, right? These are the some operations you can perform with the integers and numbers, right? You can explore with them. There's something, right? Another thing we are going to cover in this lecture is list, right? So basically, what a list? List is a collection of, you can consider list as a multiple items, right? If you want to store some multiple items, till now what we were doing the like we were storing an integer and string into a variable named separately. But what if I want to store 10 numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Oh, it's a bit tedious to store those numbers, right? For example, if I declare one variable a that would store 1, another variable b that would store 2, another variable c that would store 3, is very tedious to do with it. So we have a data type in Python that is list, list, right? What how we can declare a list in Python? We are just going to use this square brackets. If you use square brackets to store some values, that means you are declaring a list in Python. The compiler would come and identify that these are the like the square brackets are there. So the compiler would automatically detect that you are going to declare a list, right? We will just see how. So we will just name it as first list, and we declare as this list, right? I put 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5. So all the like whatever you want to declare, you could just declare using comma, right? So, and the last you just print them, print one by tell you how to print them one by one, but you can print the whole string using print statement, print first list, right? And what should we do? We should actually we just comment this whole thing. What I'm doing is I'm just commenting this thing that we can work upon this. Right. So in list, we have declared the list. First, you have to name that list. I have declared my list as first list. The first list includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are printing that. So if I run this, the number coming to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right. So another thing that you need to, this is an integer type or integer type list. Right. You can declare a list that could contain mm, strings. My list, I just name it as my list. Oh no, fruit list. I should name it as fruit list. Name of the list is fruit list, and now I'm going to start. Mm, we use just a apple here, banana, then guava is there, right? And we'll just print this fruit list. So the list is coming out with this, right? The other thing we would understand here is uh, how we can access them. one by one, right? We are so if you what uh, just in the next line we just print the name of the list, fruit, uh, uh, fruit list, and with these square bracket with the name of the list with this square bracket we basically we are going to indicate what indexing is. First I explain the indexing, sorry. So what is indexing? Whenever the list is declared, right, the positions are also like defined. So the position of apple in this list is 0, the position of banana in this list is 1, and so on. The guava is 2. In our normal counting, we start with 1, 2, 3, 4. But in like list or any, if you are aware of array, what we do in indexing, we start with 0. The first, the apple, you it would be more clear if I just write 0 here, and I'm going to print this. So you can see apple is printed with index 0. Apple is printed, and if I copy this, Control plus C and Control plus V, and if I replace this 0 with 1, and if I run it, then banana is printed with apple. So 0 is apple. We can see 0 is apple, 1 is banana, and we can also print with 2. 2 is going to be guava. Right? It's obvious. And we can declare. So we can access these numbers using uh, these indexing. Right? First, what we did in this list, we just created a list using the square bracket. We put some values in it using comma. These values can be printed use like the whole list can be printed with the name of the list. That's quite simple, right? If you can call the individual item using the indexing, how the indexing is done, it start with 0, and you have to just 0, 1, 2, and go on, right? So the next thing, uh, uh, there are most things you can explore, right? But as the time constraints are there, I'm moving on to the if statement. If and else statements. Statement. Sorry. Yeah. So, what are these statements and how we are going to use it? Suppose we have a scenario with this list. What we want to do is we want to print the names having index greater than 2, or greater than or equal to 2. So we can write the statement. We want to print those fruits with index greater than 2, greater than or equal to 2, right? No, that's not a very good question because we would need a for loop here. We would not take this. We just take some another example. If I declare A as 17 and B as 18, and if I compare, if I want to compare, the comparison operators are there. Okay, I need to explain you the basically there are some comparative with this if else statement. We are going to cover them also. So if I want to check that whether this A is greater than B, right? So the syntax is goes like this. If you have to write the if statement, right? If A is greater than B, right? You have to put the colon, right? You see, when I put the colon, the indent, this is called, yeah, this is indentation basically. If I don't put the column, the cursor is going to the next line. If I put this column, that's called indentation, right? So whatever this, if I write, this is basically if that's in the normally if you go with the tab actually, four spaces are there, right? So if whatever comes in this, if statement is there, then this in this whatever like I write, if I write print something, if I should declare print done, right? I want to print only done when a is greater than b. So just see the syntax. You have to learn the syntax. Don't worry when you're going to practice. It's easy to come up with this, right? So if the statement is there, if statement is there that says a is greater than b, if that happens, print done, right? If then if a is greater than b, in this in if is a greater than b, no, right? So it should not print. If I execute this, it's not printing anything. I should just comment this out also. Comment out this also, right? And I run this, nothing is printed. What I'll do is just, this is greater sign and this is less than sign. Now what is, now this if statement is saying is a less than b. Now this is true. It should print done. It is printing done. That's amazing, right? So what we can do is we can get the multiple, or we just come out. Now we just explore the else statement first, right? Else, what else says? Else print this, right? Same, print not done. If when if statement is not executed, then this statement is executed. What I'm going to say, what I mean is, if we check earlier, what nothing was printed, but if this statement is this block is not executed, what should it do? Else is executed. See, not done is there. What is happening? It is if a condition is checking if a is greater than b, the answer is false. So this statement is not executed. Nothing executed in the if block. The cursor comes, like the compiler comes to else statement, and in the else statement, it executes the print. Right. If it is true, then else is not executed. Right. If it is true, print this and exit the code, right? If it is false, then execute this and exit the code, right? It's simple, clear. There's another thing with this is elif, or else or elif. We use elif here. What elif means, like, first check if statement, then check elif statement. Elif is you have to write some condition. If I write a equals equals, or if I write a greater than b, right? A greater than, no, we should write a less than b, and here we should write, I'm making this false. We must write the condition, put the colon, and print statement is there. Should write uh, something. Nothing, just print something random, right? Uh, else if, right. So if I run this, else if is printed. So what is the flow of the code is, if the cursor comes, like the compiler comes to if statement, this is false, this block is not executed. It then it comes to elif. It doesn't go to else. It only goes to else if any none of the condition fulfills. Then it only goes to else. If any of the condition is fulfilled, it never comes to else. Right? This else if is executed. Like you can use it in many ways. Just we just create a simple code to uh, command this out. X. Just write a simple code to check whether a number is even or odd. Right. So how we can check a number is even or odd? We can check a number is even by simply dividing it by 2. If the number is divisible by 2, we say the number is even, and if the number is not divisible by 2, we say the number is odd. Right. We just create we don't know, sorry, I've just okay. Don't take the input from the console right now. Just declare some integer that is x equals to 56, and just declare we want to check whether x is divisible. So we should write if, like what we want to do. We want to do that x is divisible by 2 or not. The question is whether it is even. So to check whether it is even, you must divide the number by 2. If the remainder comes 0, then the number is even. Right, this is the logic behind. So we should write this logic into our code. So we are going to divide this x. Can you remind, like, what is the how we can get the reminder? If I have already told you this modulus. This modulus, if you divide this modulus by 2, this gives us the remainder. If we divide x by 2, this is the remainder we are getting, and we must compare it with 0, right? And even, sorry, we don't use these brackets in Python. Right, we are comparing basically x is the remainder is whether sorry, so these two equal, what these two equal does is they compare. Actually they are comparing the left hand side, that is x modulo 2, that is going to give us the remainder, and the zero integer. If they are equal, this is going to print even, and if the number is not divisible, that's simple, print odd. Right. So if I run this, the answer is even. What happens is the 56 in this code, if x is replaced by 56, when 56 is divided by 2, the remainder is 0 because it is divisible by 2, and the answer comes 0. And when 0 is compared to 0, it is true. So the answer of this statement is true. So if block is executed, when the if block is executed, it prints even, right? If I change this number as 57 and run this, and this is odd, this is because x is not divisible by 2, completely divisible. The remainder is 1, and 1 is not equal to 2. The answer is false, right? The answer is false. If the answer is false, then the if block is not executed, then else block is executed, right? So this is the simple use of if and else statement. I think I'm already done. So I'll just thank you. Thanks a lot.